Hey everybody, welcome back to another Tuesday Talk. We're already in mid-October. I cannot believe it. We've had our Canadian Thanksgiving. Last week I went to Victoria, BC, where I visited my sons and we did sort of a Thanksgiving dinner, just a small little dinner that mostly consisted of ready-to-eat foods that we bought from Whole Foods. And I also brought along some of my dehydrated meat slices. I stayed the course. The October theme is stay the keto course, and I definitely did that. I didn't try any of the other extra things that they brought. One of my sons is vegetarian, so you can imagine all the things that were on the table there that I just not going to eat them. At any rate, I did get to stay in my very favorite Victorian inn that I always stay there. I'll put a picture up here. It's only like 2 blocks away from where they live, so it's nice and convenient and a pretty little spot to stay in downtown Victoria. But now I'm back and I've got 2 weeks left to kind of make hay, because the first 2 weeks of October consisted of things that, just a little bit of a crazy schedule. I did have some keto treats for Canadian Thanksgiving, which consisted of the keto pumpkin dessert I made. So that's over, that's done. I have 2 weeks to stay clean and hopefully have some good results at the end of this month. We will see. I can't control the results. I can only control what I do from day to day. I'm feeling good that I can, just keep going to stay the keto course. That's all I can do. So last week I talked about Carnivore and Ketovore, and it brought up quite a few questions. And so I did have some questions about that and these labels, because there's so many labels now, and I mean it is getting so confusing. I can barely keep track of it. So I want to just answer those questions. They are, so basically people are wondering, well, what is the difference between keto and ketovore? And you can't really talk about that unless you also talk about carnivore, because ketovore, in my mind, is closer to carnivore than to keto. So I made a few notes about this, and so let's go there. So what, first of all, keto. So keto is, following macros. The goal is to be in ketosis. And so a lot of people tweak their macros and test their ketones to stay in ketosis. It is typically higher in fat, moderate protein, under 20 carbs. Now there's the whole net carbs versus total carbs. I highly recommend going with 20 total carbs because it can be very deceiving to go with net carbs. Your body doesn't know what you're doing there. Your body knows that maybe you had 50 total carbs that netted out to 20 net carbs. It knows you had 50 carbs. I mean, watch some of Dr. Siev's videos on YouTube. Watch some of Dr. Ken Berry. I mean, you're going to, that's just my advice. And if you're brand new and you need to follow the net carbs instead, just to ease into it, that's fine. So, but you got to get to that 20 total carbs at some point, especially if you stop getting results on keto. That would be the first thing I would look at. So within keto, the key, there's these different areas. I mean, there's to me the most common things I hear about. There's clean keto, dirty keto, lazy keto. Clean keto, of course, is what I would recommend. It is you're dealing with whole foods, having real animal protein, having, maybe some low carb vegetables, hopefully low in oxalates, no processed keto foods. You stay away from those processed, if you buy it in a package and it says keto on it, try not to even look at it. But anyways, more on that in a minute. So that's clean keto is basically, like I said, whole foods and focus on good fats, which would be things like butter, avocado, if you're doing avocado, coconut oil, olive oil, no seed oils, which brings me to dirty keto. Dirty keto is kind of an anything goes. So people who do dirty keto, they still try to stay within those macros of 20 carbs or less, moderate protein, higher fat, but they don't care if they have seed oils. They'll eat processed foods and they will have processed keto treats, that sort of thing. And I'm not dissing that because when I first started keto, I don't even know how, 8-10 years ago, I did dirty keto because that's, for one thing, I didn't know all the things I know today about inflammation, and it takes time to evolve, and it takes time to learn these things. And if somebody had stood there and said, "Oh, don't have that, don't have that, don't have that," I may have gotten discouraged. So I did all the dirty keto back then, and it worked for a while until it stopped working, and then I started having to clean things up. So lazy keto. So lazy keto is basically not counting. So a lot of people who do lazy keto, after a while, they may start out counting their macros. After a while, they stop counting the macros and they just kind of estimate. And so they may be clean, they may be dirty, but they're basically not counting. Maybe some of them count their carbs, but really nothing else. They just try to stay in an easy kind of keto balance. Now, I have found that when I was doing keto, I would often drift between those three levels. And that would depend. Sometimes it would depend on how busy my week was. If my week was really busy, I could get lazy. If I was on holidays somewhere, I could get dirty. And then when I come back, I immediately, would do clean. And so I have no judgment for any of those things because, even up until a couple of years ago, I was drifting in between dirty, clean, lazy, depending on what was going on in my life. And keto worked for me until it became difficult and stopped working for me. And added to that, I went off some medications and started, to find some issues with acid reflux and that kind of thing that caused me to look deeper and let go of more foods. It was beyond clean keto. And that's where I started to experiment with carnivore. So with carnivore, I was able to avoid some of the side effects I was having from going off my protein pump inhibitor medication that I had been on for 15 years. And I will actually link my Tuesday talk where I talked about that because that was kind of almost a life-changing thing for me because that meant that at that point I was on 0 medications, which is not a bad accomplishment, for someone who's going to be 65 soon. And, my doctor, who I went to see last week, she's like, "You're not," because I hadn't seen her since before COVID. And she was surprised that I was no longer taking that med, but she was also happy about it because before COVID, we were just talking about trying to wean back on the dosage of that. And now I'm just completely off of it. So that's kind of where I started to play around with carnivore, and I did a very clean carnivore for 30 days. I did just ruminants and water and salt, and that was a good experience. It was hard. Don't get me wrong. Now I kind of live in a place that I would call Ketovore, and so Ketovore to me is almost, I guess, like an animal-based keto almost, but I feel like it's closer to carnivore than it is to keto, because, and maybe there's clean ketovore and dirty ketovore, I don't know, but generally speaking, my day looks like a whole lot of meat, a little bit of seasonings. Sometimes that's just salt, but sometimes, depending on what I'm making, it might be some Italian seasoning or cheese and sour cream. Like maybe I want to do a Mexican hamburger, like taco meat. I might use a little bit of taco seasoning and salt and some sour cream on top of that, just to give a little variety. So to me, that's Ketovore. And, and I guess this is why it's so confusing for a lot of people. I mean, even those of us that are doing it are really not sure what we're called. And I also drink coffee, which is a plant. So, I lean towards carnivore, and some days I have a completely strict carnivore day. But some days I don't. And the occasional treat, like at Thanksgiving, I did allow myself, the pumpkin dessert thing that was keto, and I seem to do okay with that. My weight loss is continuing. It is slow. I'm hoping to hit my goal weight within the next 6 months. I'm working at it. It's over 125 pounds. I haven't recalculated because I have to find records that I've got laying on Post-it notes all over the house and try to figure out, well, where am I at? Because last month I lost 3.5 pounds, and the month before I lost 5.5. So I don't know. I'm up there. It's still accumulating, which is great. One more term that I wanted to mention is hypercarnivore. I have heard a lot of people calling Ketovore hypercarnivore. And I think that just honestly, to me, it's just adding to the confusion. Because for one thing, and I know it's just a label, but hyper to me means even more carnivore. But when you look it up on the internet, it says that hypercarnivore is any animal that has 70% or more of their diet is animal meat, or something to that effect. And I think I'm more than that. I think I'm more like 95% meat-based, and a little sprinkle of seasoning, cheese, whatever here and there. So hypercarnivore doesn't really, I wouldn't call myself that. I would call myself Ketovore and hope that hope that people understand what it is then. But I honestly don't know if this has been helpful or if it has just been more confusing. I just think that, if it's working for you, it's all good. If dirty keto works for you, it's all good. And you have the knowledge that if it stops working for you, there are things that you can look at and clean up, and that might just keep you going again. And I would, if you are doing keto, dirty keto, lazy keto, and you are stuck, send me a message and let me know what you're having, and maybe I can help you. I mean, I will just give you some ideas. You can choose to listen to them or not. So, but that invitation is open to you. So anyways, I didn't want this one to be very long. It's a beautiful day outside. I have a new meat slicer back there. Can you see it? I'm going to be playing with that today and slicing up some meat, and hopefully not my fingers. It looks pretty safe. It's got this nice big guard. So I've got a few things I'm going to be doing today, and of course watch for this sort of thing on an upcoming video. So I will see you on the next video. Thank you for watching today, and see you guys soon. Bye-bye.